This is the London we know, a modern city of glass and steel, a global crossroads always reinventing itself. But that's not the London I want to show you. In fact, that's not the London we're here for at all. Instead, I'm going to use AI tools to walk through a city that's been lost for 500 years, the gritty, chaotic, and dangerous London of the 1500s. I've always wanted to see the world I've only read about in books, a city on the verge of becoming a superpower. By feeding an AI historical maps, first-hand accounts, and archaeological data, we can start to rebuild the city that time, fire, and war erased. So, this is Tudor London, and this is as close as we can get to seeing it as it really was. The first thing to understand about Tudor London is that it was exploding. At the start of the 1500s, it was a respectable medieval town of about 50,000 people, tucked neatly inside its ancient Roman walls. But by the end of the century, under the Tudors, that population quadrupled to over 200,000. This wasn't a gentle expansion, it was a chaotic surge. People flooded in from the countryside, looking for work or escaping poverty, putting an unimaginable strain on the city's old infrastructure. New suburbs shot up outside the gates, often built fast and cheap, ignoring royal proclamations that tried to stop the sprawl. What the AI starts to show isn't a quaint historical town, but a metropolis bursting at the seams. It was a tinderbox, literally and figuratively. Timber-framed houses were crammed together, making the threat of fire a constant, nagging fear. This was the age of the Tudors, a dynasty that used this booming city as the stage for its power and its brutal reforms. London was becoming the heart of the nation, and its pulse was getting faster. To really feel the energy of Tudor London, our journey has to start here, Cheapside. This was the city's commercial spine, its main artery, and a total assault on the senses. As we move through this AI reconstruction, the first thing that hits you is the noise. The constant hammering from goldsmiths' workshops, the rumble of iron-rimmed wheels on cobblestones, and the aggressive shouts of vendors. "What do you lack?" was the cry, as they hawked everything from fine silks to simple wooden spoons. And then there was the smell. One visitor wrote about the overwhelming stench, a mix of butcher's waste, rotting fish from a nearby market, and raw sewage running in open drains down the middle of the street. People would throw fresh rushes on their floors, not just for warmth, but to try and mask the filth they dragged in on their shoes. But what's amazing is that this chaos was also a highly organized system. I fed the AI records from the city's guilds, and it helped rebuild the hidden logic of all this commerce. Cheapside was the main event, but the smaller lanes shooting off it were hyper-specialized. You'd go to Bread Street for your loaf, Milk Street for dairy, and Poultry for your chickens. This wasn't just tradition, it was regulated. The Lord Mayor's office strictly controlled the price and weight of bread to prevent riots. The city even owned granaries at Leadenhall as a backup for when food was scarce. This whole scene was a finely tuned machine, powered by ambition, need, and the overwhelming press of people. If Cheapside was the heart, then London's streets were its clogged and struggling veins. The city's layout was still medieval, a maze of narrow, winding lanes that were never meant for this much traffic.
Our reconstruction shows a scene of constant gridlock. Heavy carts, pedestrians, merchants, and even herds of livestock being driven to market all fought for space. The streets were unpaved and sloped towards a central ditch that was basically an open sewer. A tourist at the time described how the slightest bit of rain turned everything into a vast amount of evil-smelling mud. The upper floors of the houses jutted out over the street, creating dark, gloomy canyons where sunlight barely reached. The problem got so bad on streets like Thames Street that by 1586, the city had to bring in specific parking regulations to manage the chaos, one of the earliest examples of urban traffic control I've ever heard of. But in stark contrast, you had the River Thames. The Thames wasn't just scenery, it was the city's great highway. It was much faster and easier to take a boat than to fight through the streets. The river was alive with thousands of wherries, small water taxis that ferried Londoners everywhere from Westminster to the Tower. Further down, the masts of massive seagoing vessels unloading cargo formed a thick forest on the horizon. This constant flow on the water was the lifeblood of Tudor London, a powerful current of trade that drove its relentless growth. Looming over all of this was the Tudor monarchy, and no monarch left a bigger mark on London than Henry VIII. His reign signaled a shift from medieval piety to these huge, intimidating displays of personal power, all expressed through architecture. Our virtual journey now takes us to Hampton Court. What I find fascinating about this place is that it wasn't even built for the king. His chief minister, Cardinal Wolsey, built it for himself in 1514. But as Wolsey fell from grace, unable to get the king a divorce, he gifted the magnificent palace to Henry in a desperate attempt to save his own skin. It didn't work. Henry took Wolsey's palace and, with his usual extravagance, made it his own. He quadrupled the size of the kitchens, creating a massive food factory to feed his court of over 800 people twice a day. He added a royal tennis court, a bowling alley, and, most impressively, the Great Hall. This hall is just a breathtaking statement of power, with an ornate hammer-beam roof that carpenters had to work on by candlelight to finish. Hampton Court was more than a home. It was a pleasure palace. It was a hotel, the center of government, and a theater for the grand drama of court life, where your entire future could be made or broken in an instant. Using the AI, we can peel back the layers of later construction and see the palace as Henry saw it, a vibrant complex of red brick, opulent halls and sprawling gardens, a symbol of a new kind of monarchy, defined by sheer, overwhelming magnificence. Before the 1530s, London's skyline was dominated by the spires of its churches and monasteries. For centuries, huge institutions like the priories of Blackfriars and Whitefriars were central to the city's life. They owned enormous tracts of land and were a constant visible presence. Then, in less than a decade, they were gone. Henry VIII's break with the Catholic Church was famously driven by his need for a male heir, but it also had a more practical motive: money. The monasteries were incredibly wealthy, and Henry was broke. Between 1536 and 1541, an event known as the Dissolution of the Monasteries saw some 900 religious houses across England shut down, their riches seized by the crown.
This was arguably the single greatest transfer of land and wealth in London's history. The impact on the city's landscape was immediate and violent. The AI reconstruction can show us this transformation as bustling monastic grounds suddenly fall silent. Lead was stripped from the roofs, bells were melted down for scrap, and valuable building materials were carted off. Some buildings were given to loyal nobles, others were repurposed. The London Charter House, for instance, became an arms store. Many were just left to crumble into ruin. The human cost was immense. When the monks of the London Charter House refused to accept Henry as head of the church in 1535, they were brutally executed as a message to anyone else who might resist. The Dissolution was a destructive act that tore the spiritual heart out of the medieval city. It cleared the ground for a new, more secular London, but it was a birth that came at a terrible price. As dusk fell, a completely different London emerged. The bustling crowds vanished, and the city became a place of deep shallows and real danger. There was no street lighting. Once the sun went down, the city was plunged into near total darkness. To be out after dark was a risk. If you absolutely had to go somewhere, you carried your own lantern, but its weak flame did little to push back the gloom. The city watch would patrol the streets, calling out the hour, but the unlit alleys belonged to thieves and cutpurses. At a set hour, a curfew bell would ring. The great city gates were locked, and chains were often pulled across major streets, sealing London for the night. Inside, life went on by the light of a fire or expensive tallow candles. For most Londoners, home was a simple, crowded space. The poor often lived in one- or two-room homes with dirt floors, sleeping on straw mattresses. Yet even in this world, they found ways to connect. The city was packed with alehouses, which were the social hubs of their communities. Here, for the price of a pint, you could find warmth, company, and a brief escape. They were places of music and games, the vibrant, noisy centers of working-class life, where news was shared and the pressures of the day were, for a moment, forgotten. As the 16th century came to a close, a revolutionary new form of entertainment began to appear in the suburbs, just beyond the reach of disapproving city officials: the first permanent, purpose-built playhouses. This was the dawn of commercial theatre. The most famous, of course, was the Globe Theatre, built in 1599, and the stage where many of Shakespeare's greatest plays would first be performed. Using construction records, the AI can help us rebuild these magnificent wooden O's. They were open-air amphitheaters with a huge stage that thrust out into a central yard where the groundlings stood. If you had more money, you could pay for a seat in one of the covered galleries. A trip to the theatre was an immersive and often rowdy experience. People from every social class flocked to the playhouses to cheer, boo, and get lost in stories of love, tragedy, and history. This cultural explosion was fueled by the city itself. London's explosive growth had created a huge population hungry for entertainment, and the chaos of the Tudor century gave dramatists plenty of material to explore the nature of power, justice, and what it means to be human. The rise of the theatre is the final act in London's transformation from a medieval town into a true Renaissance metropolis, ready for a new century. Looking at these reconstructions, it's hard not to feel how close the past really is. These streets, these buildings, and these events all shaped the world we live in today. And through this project, we can get just a glimpse of what it was like to actually be there. From the muddy lanes of Cheapside to the grand halls of Hampton Court, Tudor London was a city of incredible contradictions, of opportunity and poverty, of breathtaking art and brutal persecution. The physical city of the Tudors is almost entirely gone, lost to fire and progress, but its energy, its spirit, and its stories are still here. So, if there's another city, another moment in time, or a historic scene you'd like to see me bring back to life, let me know in the comments. I'd love to keep exploring the past with you. Thanks for watching.